This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field.
Hi there, this is Lawrence Neal from High Intensity Business. I hope you're doing well during this difficult time. I know it's challenging for a lot of us in the high intensity training industry. I appreciate that a lot of you have either had to close shop temporarily or have experienced a lot of cancellations. And I hope that you're coping okay, as I said, during this challenging time. And hopefully things will get better as soon as possible. So I wanted to just preface this episode. I think it's important during this challenging time. This is an episode that I recorded a few months ago with Luke Carlson and Dr. Bryce Lee. And this is just a fantastic episode. And I did probably because I did very, very little talking. Basically, this is a live coaching session where Dr. Bryce Lee, who is the founder of Strength Space, a high-intensity training studio, is very open about the challenges and the goals, objectives that he has for his business and in his business. And Luke just does a wonderful job of helping give Bryce some solutions and some guidance on how he can move his business forward. Luke is the CEO of Discover Strength, I think at this point, 4 million revenue personal training business in the United States, based out of Minnesota, and is one of the highest volume revenue personal training businesses in the nation. And Luke also has a lot of experience coaching colleagues in this industry through the Resistance Exercise Conference and also the Real Hit Experience. So I think there's no one better qualified than Luke Carlson. I think this is a great time, obviously, to step away and think about your business. You know, if you have had to close shop temporarily, it might make sense for you to use this time, this opportunity wisely, and just reevaluate your goals, your business design. And I think this content will really help you do that. Many of you will share the same challenges as Bryce. I know because I talk to many of you all the time. And so I hear the same themes over and over again. And I really think Bryce addresses a lot of those. And Luke is going to give you some just wonderful advice in this episode. And this is really going to help you plan for the future when all this crap is over. And so I'm excited to bring you this episode today. Secondly, I am, like the rest of you, I've really had to kind of reevaluate my focus and respond to the crisis and make sure that I'm being as helpful as possible during this time. You know, I had obviously a schedule of content that was going to go out, and then the crisis hit. And I've really had to put a lot of that on pause because I want to be sensitive to the situation and I want to help as much as possible. And so you'll see certainly a different tone and more helpful content. For example, I know that many of you have decided to transition to providing virtual services, helping clients work out from home, giving clients virtual coaching, and maybe other business models as well. And that's something that I have a lot of experience in and expertise in. And so I'll be doing probably maybe some video content and definitely some podcasts to help you do that. And if you're in Hit Business membership, then I'm doing lots of collaborations with fitness business experts who have an expertise in online and offline to give you some really good resources to help you make that transition, even if it's just temporarily. I just also want to just finish this intro by saying, don't get too down. I know it's challenging. Really important to be aware that there's always opportunity and adversity. Getting through this and making the most of this challenging time will actually make you stronger. It will make you a better individual, a better leader, and a better business person. It's hard to see that sometimes when things are really hard, but it's the truth. And one last thing, and I don't hear this being talked about much in the media, and I think is really, really important and overlooked, is how events like this will foster an enormous amount of gratitude. When this is all over and people are able to go to that local restaurant or go to that conference or what have you, they're going to experience an enormous amount of gratitude to be able to do these very, very normal things. And I think just returning to regular, normal life is going to be a grateful experience for many of us. And so that's one of the reasons why I think events and times like this are quite important, to just remind us that most of us, certainly in the West, have a pretty comfortable lifestyle, and it helps us to appreciate that. So when things return to normal, I think that'll be pretty powerful. So those are just my thoughts, and hopefully that's somewhat helpful to you right now. Anyway, without further ado, please enjoy this wonderful coaching episode with Dr. Bryce Lee and Luke Carlson. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to highintensitybusiness.com. This is episode 256. Today's guests are Luke Carlson and Dr. Bryce Lee. Luke is the founder and CEO of Discover Strength, a fast-growing personal training business based in Minnesota with 5 training facilities. Discover Strength offers a variety of strength training sessions facilitated by educated and expert trainers. Their facilities are among the highest volume and revenue training facilities in the United States. Our second guest is Dr. Bryce Lee, and Bryce is a director of therapy and co-founder of Strength Space, a provider of resistance-based exercise and physical therapy services located in Chesapeake, Virginia. Gents, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here, Lawrence. Thank you. And thank you to Luke for doing this.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Lawrence. Thanks for having us. It's a great format, so thank you.
You're welcome. I've been really excited to do this for a while now. Obviously, I've done a podcast similar to this with Skylar Tanner and Wayne Thacker, where Wayne had the opportunity to ask Skylar all sorts of questions in relation to Skylar's business and challenges that Wayne's having. And so I wanted to do a similar thing in this instance. Bryce and obviously I've known Bryce, we have known each other for quite a while, and you've shared with me your business journey and some of the challenges you've had, and I think there's no one better position to help you than Luke, obviously, who's done so well with Discover Strength and has a vast amount of experience coaching business owners in this space. And secondly, I also just think this is so helpful to people, because it's one thing hearing Luke give great advice on a podcast about certain principles, certain tactics and strategy in business, but to actually hear it in the context of someone's high intensity training business makes it much easier for the audience to relate to, and for myself as well, for my own studio that I'm going to be opening this year. So I figured the best way to start, Bryce, would be perhaps to give Luke some more context on Strength Space. Do you want to give him the background of your business? Maybe then go on to the sort of objectives you have, what you're trying to achieve, and then some of your key challenges. And I'm really going to kind of let you guys roll, and then I might pop in with suggestions or questions along the way.
Yeah, sounds great. So Strength Space is a high-intensity training studio in Chesapeake. And two of the key things that I wanted when starting it, I wanted a place where I could confidently send patients when I was done with them to know that they were going to be taken care of well. And then I also wanted a place where I and other physical therapists could, when they were treating patients, could have access to good equipment and to private treatment rooms and things like that. So the main thrust of the business is one-on-one personal private strength training with clients. And then we also have treatment rooms that are available to physical therapists who are looking to be in this environment and have access to this type of equipment. That's something that maybe one day we'll pivot away from. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's just those are two of the initial ideas that we wanted to kind of achieve, and things we wanted to be able to deliver to the public that we didn't think were there. Were accessibility for physical therapists who are trying to start their own thing, but more just exploiting the lack of a high intensity training service in the Hampton Roads, Chesapeake, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. When we started, we really tried to take a very and hindsight will tell whether this was the right approach, but a very low cost, low overhead approach to setting up. And so I got flex space in a semi-industrial area as my treatment studio. I was working full time and worked full time for the first year and a half that the studio was open because I had a flexible working arrangement as a home health physical therapist. I was able to be here at the studio when I had a client and then go out and treat my patients. And so now I'm getting to the point where the business, I've gotten enough clients to where the business is covering its overhead. It's starting to get to the point where it can pay me a salary. But I'm at a position where I have to step away from home health completely in order to continue growing it because there's no more time between the two things. I've secured a little bit of funding and financing in order to be able to cover my salary so I can afford to do that. But so far our debt's been pretty minimal. Right now we're still small. We're seeing between 30 and 40 sessions a week. And of course the goal is to expand that number. And my big goal for this year is to bring on my first employee or two. We'll see about what works to be the best for us, but that's my goal. I was actually listening to your traction episode, Luke, with Lawrence just recently, both of them, and was definitely convicted by my lack of clarity on my core values, and I'm working on those now so that when I have serious discussions with my first employee, I can have those to talk about with them. I suppose some of the biggest challenges that we have are figuring out how to allocate precious time to marketing, because there seems like a lot of great ideas and things we can do. Of course, identifying through uniques and being on message and making sure that is effective or clear is important, but making sure that we're then taking the precious time that I might have and applying it to the right thing. That's been a little bit of a challenge. I've worked with an ad agency to try to help me run Facebook advertisements. That was not very fruitful. I spent a fair amount of time working on the website and trying to make it reflect what I want and be optimized in that way. But now I'm in a position where I have to decide, hey, how much of my working capital is worthwhile to devote towards a professional agency to do SEO for me, things like that. And then the other big challenge that I'm wrestling through is if I am not yet at the point where I could hire an employee and keep them busy immediately with clients, but I know I really need to have this employee in order to allow me the time to grow. Where's the balance there? At what point is it too soon to hire? Or is it worth it to just assume, hey, I'm going to need to keep this employee busy with projects, observation, shadowing. It's better to have this employee come on sooner and learn the ropes sooner. That's sort of the balance I'm trying to find. Am I too soon or should I wait on on hiring, those kind of things? My instinct says to get ready with hiring, but those are some of the challenges we're working through. Identifying how to apply time to or where to apply time to marketing and resources, and then making a decision about exactly when is the right time to hire. And sorry if I threw too much out all at once there.
No, that's great. So, Lawrence, do you want me to kind of tackle those two issues? Is that the best way to move forward?
Go for it.
Discussion around both of those. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Bryce, let me start with the new employee first.
Yeah.
So, the mindset I think that you got to cultivate when you ask this question is, well, what's the employment experience that you want to be able to deliver? And then the timing of when you hire them will largely be dictated by the desired employment experience. And so I'll give you kind of an example from our situation, but then try to pull it back and make it applicable to any situation. So we always use the mentality of, it's a paraphrase of a Zig Ziglar quote, but you can get anything you want to out of your life if you help enough others get what they want to out of their life. Adam Grant was just on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he said almost the same thing. Tim Ferriss asked him if you could put one thing on a billboard. That's one of Tim Ferriss's favorite questions. Yeah. And I actually never listened to Tim Ferriss. I just really like Adam Grant, and I saw Adam Grant was on the podcast, so I listened to it. And Adam Grant said his billboard message would be almost the same thing, that I think the only way to true success in business and in life is by working through and helping other people, which I just think is just awesome. It aligns with that quote that I used. So the mindset we use is the personal trainer is the goose, and they're laying golden eggs. And the golden egg is a great workout and revenue, essentially. And if we want great workouts and more revenue, which of course we do, then we have to make sure that we're nurturing the goose. We're taking care of the goose. We're putting the goose in a position where they can constantly be laying those golden eggs. So I think you have to go through some of the criteria around what matters to the goose so that they can continue to provide golden eggs. Right now, Bryce, you know that you can deliver a workout experience and a customer experience that's requisite of what you're proud of and what you want the studio to be able to deliver. You don't have a guarantee that your trainer can do that. You have to be able to cultivate the trainer so that they can do that. And I'm confident you'll be able to do that. But part of cultivating that is making sure that they are treated, the terminology we would use is that the goose is treated right. And so part of the goose being treated right is, are they seeing enough clients where they're able to generate enough revenue and they're able to generate enough income? So this is my very long-winded way of getting at the fact that I think you have to be mindful when you hire that person. Are you full enough where you can give them the compensation that they're going to want or need, which of course is going to involve you taking a step back. And can the business handle that at this point? Can the business handle you receiving, generating less revenue, still getting paid the same salary, but yet you're able to retain the goose because you're not just piecemealing their sessions in. Now, of course, this is all different if you're hiring someone that's going to be very part-time and you're going to take the clients during the day and maybe they're taking some afternoon, evening clients and they're part-time. It'll grow from there. That's fine. But you've got to spend some time thinking about what you want that employment experience to be like. There's people in our industry where the employment experience is that's 3 days a week, a 3-hour shift. They're seeing 6 clients in a row, 30 minutes each for each one of those. That can be a great employment experience. But that's different than this is a career. It's 40 hours a week. This person expects to make good money. And so I'm never going to try to encourage you to choose one of those options or the other. But you got to define that first before you know whether or not you're ready to hire. Because being ready to hire where you just want someone to be part-time and pick up some weekends and some evenings is a very different employment experience than are they full-time and then what's involved with that full-time. So again, I don't think there's a right or wrong, but you just have to define that. Does that make any sense?
No, it totally does. And I know that long-term, what I want is I don't know if it's former or latter, because I forget which one you said first, but the more committed full-time employee who's looking for growth, maybe looking for management, that kind of thing. But I think initially I am going to have to start with at least beta testing the process with a part-time employee. So I think maybe just so long as I package my job application or my listing in that way, hopefully I can communicate that and attract the right person. But
I think you can. I would want to make sure that you approach it with the mindset that you're going to beta test and the hours are going to be shorter, but the commitment to how you develop them and the experience that you expect them to provide and how serious you want to take their job, don't ease into that. Don't kind of beta test that. Go all in on that right away. So one of the great kind of quotes from Jim Collins that you really have to kind of tweak it to fit the scenario, but I always do, is he said, when you build a great company, you build a great company from like the first day. You don't wait until you're a certain size and then start making decisions like, okay, we're going to start acting like a great company. So even when you're small, even when you have a very, very short tenure, you still say, well, what would a great company do? We're going to act like a great company from the beginning. And so a great company, even with a part-time person, you think that person's going to become full-time. You still have to invest in their development and their training and how you onboard them matters, what their first few days looks like, how you're going to upskill them throughout the employment experience. So I've just seen too many studio operators ease into that in a way where they're just not honoring that employee, and they're looking at the employee saying, hey, this is a new thing for us. It's a new experience for us. We're kind of both figuring it out as we go. And I think you got to invest the intellectual effort into really deciding what you want that experience to look like and the development of that person to look like. And from what little I know about you, Bryce, I think you'll find that process really exciting. I think that'll be really fun for you to develop that curriculum and develop that learning.
That's really helpful. Yeah, and I've definitely been on the receiving end and been hired into an organization that took onboarding not seriously at all, put you in a dark room with a couple of computer modules and said, hey, watch these things and you'll be ready to go. And it's amazing. And you're the first person who I ever heard say, highlight the importance of creating an experience for your employee when they first come in. And that definitely resonated with me. I don't think I would have ever articulated what was missing in those one or two jobs that were like that until I heard you say that, and that was helpful. So
you have to have a mindset, in my opinion, that the person doesn't want to come in and be Bryce's assistant. They want to come in and have a great employment experience, and you happen to own the company. But it's not like they're just assisting you, even though they are technically assisting and filling in like your schedule. So one way I look at it is you want to resist the dentist model. So dentists in this country anyways, I think have been just notorious where the whole dental practice has been about them. Like it's about the dentist. But the reality is in a big dental clinic, there's like a lot of other employees. There's hygienists, there's dental assistants, there's front desk staff, there may be an office manager. And those are all just massive afterthoughts. The practice is totally created for the dentist. And I don't think that's a great employment destination. And for us, every one of our trainers, right, is the dentist. So it's not like we have one big revenue producer and then everyone else is kind of in a support role. No, those trainers are the dentists. And so we have to try to give them like the dentist type experience where there's a little bit of, we revere them and we have to compensate them accordingly and develop them accordingly, et cetera. So just have a mindfulness that no one wants to be your assistant. They truly want to, have a great employment experience and they want to be the dentist.
Yeah, that is helpful. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Can we pivot to the marketing question?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we talked a little bit about, or you mentioned the uniques. You talked a little bit about, well, how do I find the time to actually do this? And so those are really good questions. And so I'll start with kind of the first cliched answer that I have, and then we can move beyond it. But I still think it's important is no amount of marketing you do is going to be as important as what the quality of your workout experience is like. So I don't think you have to spend a tremendous amount of money on marketing, and you can still market really successfully. But here's the issue. Everyone you ever talk to in the marketing space, whether it's advertising or marketing or SEO or anyone that's going to help you with any of your digital, anyone's going to help you with any of your inbound, they have just never worked with an industry that relies less on marketing than we do. In most businesses, you just have to market to have leads continually come in. And we're a business that I just think that we can focus on a great experience and get referrals from that experience. So that's kind of the foundation. And you will continually hear the rhetoric, and it's true in other industries, that you got to market. It's the last thing that you cut. And I do think that's true in virtually every industry except ours. It comes down to giving great experience, retaining the client, and earning referrals. Now, all that being said, where should you spend your emphasis, your time, and even your money. So when you look at your website, I would just say there's got to be a few things there. First of all, the call to action has to be so incredibly easy to find. And maybe it is already, Bryce, but you got to have a click here to do the free introductory workout, or maybe it's not a free introductory workout, but click here for the introductory workout. Wherever I'm on your page, I should just see it in the upper right corner, in the center. It should just be obvious as to how I get started. It should not say learn more. It should say like schedule the workout, the free introductory workout. I should be very clear as to what that next step is, and wherever I'm navigating, that should be popping up. So that's kind of number one. And then number two, this applies to an SEO standpoint, but it also is all about building trust with your customer. It's using a they ask, you answer mentality. So you want to sit down and think about, you write out the 7 questions that any of your prospects would ask about you before they've heard of you already. They've heard about you. What would they want to know before they would actually spend money and work out with you? What are those 7 questions? Then you want to write those questions somewhere on your website, and specifically you want to answer those questions on your website, because those are the questions that someone's going to be Googling. And when they come to your website, first of all, you're going to improve your SEO. But when they come to your website and they see those answers, you've built so much trust. That honest, transparent communication is the ultimate trust builder. And we live in this world, or we're doing business in this world now of information symmetry, where we used to have information asymmetry, where the business knew how things worked and knew the prices and knew the deals, and the customer had to go and talk to the salesperson to learn about those things. Well, now in virtually every business and every industry, the customer can frankly go to Google and understand everything there is about you. And they can find out your prices online. And they can talk to other people via social media. So it behooves you to just be incredibly transparent on your website and answer those 7 questions. Then I would say you should look at repurposing all of your content onto your website to improve your SEO. So if you're writing a blog, if you're writing any type of email fit tip that goes out, you want to repurpose that on a weekly basis, so you're constantly prioritized from a search engine optimization standpoint. And then your website as a whole should really speak to whatever your 3 uniques are. And Bryce, I think you, more so than even the rest of the people in our industry, have an opportunity to really carve yourself out with some great differentiation. But I think you got to just make sure that anything I see on your website, anything I see in any of your marketing, I can pull back to one of those 3 uniques, one of those 3 differentiators. So that would be my starting point. That they ask you answer approach, repurposing content on your site. Everything speaks to the 3 uniques. And if it doesn't speak to a 3 unique, really don't include it. And then it's got to be so apparently clear how I take the next step.
Yeah, that's really helpful. One of the challenges I have with the uniques is that, I try to posture the business as saying, hey, we understand the joint problems you might have. We're built by a physical therapist, and we can work around those issues. It won't be physical therapy. This is for after physical therapy or to prevent the need for physical therapy, but it's working around your issues. It's sort of this guided by rehab science is one of my 3 uniques. And I've thought about different ways to phrase it. Thanks.
I love that.
But the challenge is, and you have to tell people things over and over before it clicks. I'll tell people that, and I'll tell it again. And every once in a while, I'll have a client who will still think we're doing physical therapy, and I'll have to stop and make sure they understand we're not. But when I tell new prospects or friends of friends, and I find that I have to be very careful that I say I'm a physical therapist until I almost have to make sure I don't say that until the very end. Because if I say it too early in the conversation, they just put me into a bucket in their head, which says, got it, does he take my insurance, those kind of things. And that's just maybe a blessing and a curse of having that credential in this space.
And Bryce, when you do that, you have to be able to communicate that, on your website, anything written, in person. I mean, every time you're talking about the brand, you have to be able to communicate that in a way that is so insanely clear. I mean, you need absolute clarity. The line that Donald Miller, one of my favorite authors, uses is, if you confuse, you lose. Clarity is king. And it's so true. Like, someone has to understand, there's almost confusion because you're a physical therapist. Mm-hmm. And like, when I hear you on the podcast, like, I introduce you to some of my other staff, and like, Bryce is great. He's a physical therapist. And like, when I just listen to you talk, it can become confusing on what your identity is, which is fine because it's just you riffing on a podcast and teaching on a podcast, and it's wonderful. But in terms of your business messaging, I need to know exactly who you are and what you do. And I want to put very little mental energy into understanding it. And it should be very clear as to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the worst person at creating that clarity is usually us, because I'm certain you're a humble guy, but we're still enamored by our unique journey and our unique knowledge and our story. And Bryce, you have one of the most interesting stories of all the guys in our space, but you still have to make sure that you don't, your desire for completely articulating that story and your uniqueness get in the way of what the true offering of the business is. Yeah,
that's build a story brand wisdom there, I think. That's another recommendation that you or Hannah made on one of the podcasts. It's a very helpful way of thinking about putting the client at the center of the story.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Polano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, you're underloading yourself rep after rep. And this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the High Intensity Business podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation of your ARX machines.
Another thing that I juggle this around is I'm a Navy reservist, and so I try to, I do that. It's enjoyable, but I try to minimize its impact on the business, and that's another reason why hiring is important, is because it's conceivable that the Navy could come and say, hey, Bryce, things are interesting right now. We need you more than just 1 weekend a month, and they can sort of remand me essentially. And so, if that happens, it's what it is. But I'm trying to get the business to the point where it's healthy enough to survive without me. That's obviously a very long-term goal, but still something I need to work towards. But anyway, so starting in February, I'm going from basically being in the business for about 20 hours a week because I've been doing other work to being in the business about 40 to 90 hours a week or whatever. I mean, I'm doing a lot of work more than just 20 hours, but scaling back other things, in other words. And so it's very helpful to kind of give me these tips on where to focus that. And maybe your initial experience in the industry would be sort of helpful to hear a little more about here, because I guess the question is, right now you have a pool of, I want to say, am I right in saying close to 1,000 workouts a week? Is that an order of magnitude correct there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did 1,600 last week.
Yeah, so that pool of clients that feeds that 1,600 workouts, that is certainly big enough to where it's a machine that can generate organic referrals. What did you do when you were not that big, when you were starting out, and what did your very beginnings look like when you were bootstrapping? We've all had this bootstrapping experience where it's training friends, and then those friends tell friends, and you sort of try to work it throughout. And that's been happening for me, but I'm just interested to hear a little more about what that was like for you.
So it's exactly what you said. And then we took advantage of any group that we could. So if there was a running club that we could get the whole running club to come in, like they were going to go on a 10-mile run on a Saturday morning, could we schedule them for like a 10:30 workout where it was like a free introductory workout where they would come in, and it would be me, and I had some part-time trainers. And so we'd get 2 or 3 part-time trainers and myself, like 4 of us, and we'd work with a running club of 10 people, and we'd put something together bespoke. So we'd do like a 15-minute PowerPoint or 20-minute PowerPoint of the strength training benefits for long distance runners. And then we'd take them through a workout that was maybe 20 minutes long. And then sometimes we'd even do like refreshments afterwards. So it was kind of like a whole social experience for them. And of course, the 10 runners that were in that group, 2 to 3 of them would become a client right away. And then they started training with us, and they continually talked to the people in their run club, and they referred to more people in their run club, and it kind of grew that way. And then they'd be running at a different race with someone, a different pocket of runners, and it would spread among runners. So anytime we could get a group in to experience things as a group, we would do that. And we were adding, it's like that consultative selling approach, which means you add value first. Like you don't wait to get paid, you just lead with value. And so we wanted to provide a free workout for as many different groups as possible. And it was just advantageous to bring them in as groups rather than just a single individual. So in that case, you had to go to the organizer of the group. You had to go to the running coach, whatever it was. So that was one way we got the groups in. But then we taught every trainer that like your mindset is, and we stole this from Howard Schultz at Starbucks, it is 1 rep, 1 set, 1 client. Like the only thing you care about is the 1 rep that the client's performing in front of you. I would always say, in our first year, I said the only way we're ever going to get to, our big goal at the beginning was to get to 500 workouts, was we just have to care about this 1 rep. If we don't care about this 1 rep and this 1 set and this 1 client in front of us, we're never going to be able to move on to getting a referral from this person. And it's so important to continue to communicate that the only way we grow and the only way we really get big is by focusing on this interaction in front of us. And that's the only way you're ever going to earn the referral. And I've said this on Lawrence's podcast before, but I can remember in the very, very early days being stressed about things like payroll, being stressed about things like how do I cover my overhead, being stressed about all of the different stresses of running a business. And I would ultimately always remind myself in the middle of the session, the answer, the solution to every problem I have in my life or in my business is all rooted in my ability to give a good session right. Because a good session leads to revenue, it leads to retention, it leads to referrals, and revenue, retention, referrals solves all of my other problems. And by all my other problems, I mean all my other business problems. So we made sure that we had an awareness of that and that our staff had an awareness of that from the beginning. And then the last thing I would say is very early on, we took advantage of going to events. So if there was an expo that we could go to, if there was a large company that had an event where we could get a booth and it was really reasonable priced, we would always go there to get in front of people. And we did well. But the biggest mistake we made is we just kind of went there to create awareness. And now in all cases, we go there to try to capture emails. So you give away anything, you do anything you can to capture emails. The more you build your email list, the more effective your marketing will be. And I think Lawrence is actually a pretty good testament to this. Stronger than social media is your email list. You always control that list. You can create drip campaigns of emails that are automated where you're not working at all and you're constantly having email content go out. But your sole focus of going to an event or even bringing 10 people into your facility for a mini seminar and a workout is to capture their email, put them in your drip, and eventually they're going to buy something from you if you're constantly dripping emails to them.
Yeah, that's great, Luke. Thank you. So you mentioned when you're starting out and you would do these workshops on the weekends, and you would have a few part-time trainers. Does that mean that from day one you had employees?
Yeah, literally from day one we had employees, but they were all part-time. So I had worked at a place. I worked at a place called Fitness First, and this is when I was in college, and I was the first ever employee there. And Steve, the owner, who's been on the podcast with Lawrence before, does a great job. He would show up at 7. He didn't take any appointments before 7. He'd go from 7 until about 4 o'clock. And I would get done with my classes because I was in college at the time. And I'd be there at 4, maybe sometimes 5. And I would go from 4 or 5 until 8 p.m. And then I covered the Saturdays and Sundays. So it was a great situation that we could cover basically the entire calendar, the entire week, weekends and everything with just the two of us. And so I thought, okay, that's how I'm going to start Discover Strength, is I'm going to be ready to go at 6 a.m. and I'll be able to go until 5 or 6 p.m. And then I'd have an evening shift. And that evening shift was just predicated on what the busy times were. And I knew, because I had a lot of clients going into the opening of our first location, that, I know I'll have some people that want to train in the evening and I'll be able to utilize these part-time people. So, so to answer your question, we had some part-time people from the very, very beginning. But when I say part-time, it was like a 3-hour shift, a couple days per week.
Yeah. And so you started location 1 with a client base. Were those your pre-existing clients from? Yeah. Gotcha.
So I was a strength coach at a high school, and then as I knew I was going to be in the business, I just started training clients in that weight room, and I trained them at nights, and I trained them in the morning. I trained them whenever I didn't have to do my real job, knowing that the business was about to start. And then I brought those clients over, and most of them came over, and I gave them kind of discounted pricing when we moved over, because I wasn't charging much before, and now I needed to charge a lot more. And so it was a tough transition for some of them, but almost all of them made it. And I have such a high percentage of those clients as clients today still.
Gotcha. I have a couple other sort of bigger picture questions. I shouldn't say bigger picture, but more training related questions. You, in one of the recent episodes, you said you're surprised people don't ask how Discovered Strength trains. They just ask how they do business. And I'm surprised by that too. I wonder if you could talk about how you handle a client who, if I can pivot a little bit, how you handle a client who comes in and is obviously having a bad day. Like they get on their first exercise and they're just tanking on it, and you're going to have to adjust. How do you engage with that client and make sure that they don't start feeling defeated? And then what do you do to their exercises? How do you change things? What do you do there?
So one of our 3 customer service pillars is be the best part of the client's day. So no matter what, when they leave, it's not a matter of do we administer the workout the right way? Do we do things well? Were we the best part of their day? So which means we have to provide a uplifting emotional experience for them, right? I mean, that's what matters, is are we the best part of their day? And so they can't leave defeated. They have to feel like it was productive. So I would say in almost all cases, we will right away go to the language that the only thing that matters is that we're getting the muscle failure. And we've used this from reading the book, The 4 Agreements. And one of the 4 agreements was always do your best. And so I said, we got to have the mentality to always do your best. Physiologically, you're going to ebb and flow. You're going to be in a different spot when you come in. We know that stress has a huge impact on your performance. And so all I'm going to ask you to do is do your best on this set right now. And that's it. So that's when the trainer senses that, that's where they're going to go right away, is always do your best. You just care about this set. We're going to take it one set at a time, and we care less about your numbers. We care about, did you actually get to failure? And if it's an extreme example, we may reduce weights, but we rarely reduce weights. We rather have someone, instead of get 11 reps today, they maybe get 6 reps, and we're fine with that. We just tell them that we just want your effort to be there. And we firmly believe that people want the feeling of being exhausted at the end of a workout. So our trainer is still going to get a maximum effort from the trainee, and they're still going to have the trainee leave exhausted, because we think that's what we're making a bet on this. We think someone is truly purchasing the feeling of fatigue, the feeling of acute transient hypertrophy. They're purchasing this feeling of just absolutely being challenged and having their butt kicked. And so we want to make sure we're still delivering on that.
Yeah, it's helpful. And it seems like a lot of what needs to happen is from the day one, you have to be managing expectations and making sure a person understands the goal isn't performance. And it's easy to try to do that, but they can still some of them, I don't know about you, but I definitely have these clients who, hey, how much was that? You know, they definitely in their heads, they want to know, did I get more reps than last time? And so that's helpful to hear you kind of explain it that way. And maybe I just need to be clear when I first meet somebody how they should be thinking about the exercise. I also wanted to know, I know you have tiers of trainers. And when I bring on my first trainer, my anticipation is that I'm probably going to charge, they're not going to have the credentials I have. And I'm not going to charge the same for their workout as I will for my workout. And so the question is, you know, if they have a client and they're out for the day and the client comes in and I cover their session, that's fine. The client doesn't need to pay anything more for that. They just pay whatever that lower rate is for the same deal. But if I have a client and I'm out sick and my trainer covers me, how do you do that? And maybe it's just as simple as how do you do it within mind body to make it so that that person is charged less for that workout? Do you do that? And do you deal with that since you have tiers of trainers?
Yeah, we do it, but we also do it in the other direction. So if you normally train with a normal personal trainer and you happen to schedule with an Iconic trainer today, you're going to pay that upcharge.
You are.
And
okay.
If you normally train with an Iconic and you drop down, that's what you're going to pay for. So when you schedule with the trainer, we set up the trainer in mind body, so they're only allowed to do one type of session. And so as soon as the client's been moved to that trainer, then it automatically will assign that type of session. Now, maybe you're on an auto pay contract of our normal sessions, our personal training sessions. So then we have what we call an Iconic upgrade, where it just makes the session $8 more expensive or whatever it is. And it's pretty easy to tack that on. Now, I just said it's pretty easy to tack that on. If you ask me how to do it, I have no idea how to do it, but I know everybody else knows how to do it. So just add the $8 or they're at the standard rate, but it does vacillate. And every once in a while, we'll have a client that requests that they don't want to work with Iconic trainers for that reason. Like, hey, my workout's already expensive enough. I don't want to be moved to a trainer that's more expensive, but it rarely happens.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I just have to noodle around in mind body and figure out how to do that, but that's helpful. Going back to I'm sort of envisioning the business that I've been running as this very part-time thing, which is now about to become more of a full-time thing. So in my head, I'm sort of thinking, hey, it's sort of a new day one for me coming up here as I transition to full-time. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm thinking correctly about what needs to be in place before that happens. And so it sounds to me like you started from day one when you opened Discover Strength. You had some clients, but you also had employees. You were sweating payroll a little bit. How big is the war chest that Discover Strength needs to have to start brand new with a small client pool and a few employees? Meaning, is it possible to be too lean from a debt perspective and to therefore not have the wiggle room to make aggressive growth moves? How do you think about that?
Well, we had no war chest. So, I mean, we could not make aggressive growth moves because we just didn't have the capital, and all the capital that we had went into, I thought, buying really nice equipment. And so there was it was like living. It was literally payroll by payroll and making sure we made the payroll, and then constantly stepping back and saying, all right, what can we do now with this money? What do we need to buy next? And it could be something as simple as we're going to put a TV on the wall because we want to do some internal marketing on the TV on the wall, or we're going to use this money to go to a conference, or are we ready to give a little bit of raise to our trainers and how we compensate the trainer? But the beauty for us is as your training volume grows, you can manipulate how many clients you're training yourself to drive a little bit more revenue or more profitable revenue versus take a step back. And I think that's one of the key questions that every studio operator needs to answer. And I've seen studio operators go in one of two directions, or too far in one of two directions, where they're just not training enough clients and the margins are never good because they don't generate enough revenue themselves and they still want to pay themselves. And then the other end of the spectrum, they hang on to all of the clients and they can never build a great part-time or full-time staff because they've hung on to all the clients. And so you don't want to live in either one of those ends of the spectrum. You can't unload your clients too soon and not generate revenue yourself. But at the same time, you can't hang on to all the clients because then you're going to actually create the bottleneck. You're going to create the constraint to your growth, and that it's you can't unload anything. So I tried to always thoughtfully think about how many clients do I need to be seeing? How much revenue do I need to? I mean, literally up until fourth quarter of last year, we had my revenue production on our scorecard. So every week we looked at every pay period, we looked at what my revenue production was, because I was getting paid, a decent sized salary, and I wanted to make sure, am I offsetting some of that salary at least with revenue production? Now, of course, early on, your revenue production is not only covering your salary, it's covering the rent, all of the overhead. Yep. And then that will change as time goes on. But we just always had an awareness of kind of where that was. And I always thought about that. Well, if I'm paying myself this, or even, hey, maybe I want to pay myself less and back away from working with clients, but I'm okay with paying myself a little bit less. Whereas, I have good friends in our industry that continually work with more and more clients so that they can pay themselves more. So it's kind of like your individual income needs and your family needs, as well as the particular position the business is currently in.
Did you have front desk people from the very beginning, or was that something that came on later?
It came on later. So we opened in 2006, and we had our first front desk person in very early 2009. And we had them be, part-time based on our busy times as well. So the front desk usually got there at 4 p.m. and worked from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m. or 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. Then we added some morning front desk. And then eventually we just went all day with front desk.
Yeah. And then, in that period before you had something like that, I think it is that if somebody calls Discover Strength, brand new, that they talk to a real person. And so, meaning, is it, how crucial is it that you have an answering service or something like that? It's another thing I've debated.
Yeah, we never thought it was important, because we thought, as long as we communicated to the customer that we weren't going to be answering your call, but we would get back to you quickly, that's what mattered. Okay. So it was speed of getting back to a voicemail or speed of getting back to an email, rather than are we actually answering live. And we were obsessed with getting back to a voicemail as quickly as possible, or getting back to an email. And, I think that you teach customers how to schedule, whether it's intentional or it's unintentional. We have locations where our customers they call the front desk, they schedule in person, or they email the front desk to schedule. Where we have our newest location, which is kicking butt, we don't have front desk at that location, and every one of those customers schedules online via the MindBody app. It's like two different cultures totally. Yeah. And the reason they have no problem scheduling online is that's all they've ever known. They weren't used to having a front desk person.
Yeah, that's the online scheduling is an intimidating thing. I use MindBody, and I wonder if I'm shooting myself in the foot by not taking advantage of the app and self-scheduling. It's one of those things where initially, when my time was really divided between this space and my other income streams to try to pay the bills, which it still is and will be for the next few weeks. I really had to have a lot of specific control over scheduling in order to make that all work. But it sounds like I'm going to guess that you would recommend that the sooner you can implement the online scheduling, the better. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Or is that
100%? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can put enough constraints on it where they can't schedule at certain times, and you can still optimize. I mean, clearly in any appointment business, you want to optimize your schedule and condense your schedule as much as possible. So there's still ways that you can do that.
May I just butt in for a split second? This is something that interests me as well. I've been recently reviewing MindBody and GlowFox. And GlowFox I don't know if you heard of that company, guys. They're a Irish business, but they're growing very rapidly. And their product is very much focused on the boutique fitness business niche. And I suppose they're positioning themselves quite well in that sense, as MindBody has become broader, which might even threaten their market share in that specific niche. Now, going back to what you're saying with regard to self-service, for me, I feel like most of the people today are so accustomed to self-service and so used to doing that in lots of other contexts, and it removes humans and friction from the business, that it's just a no-brainer. And yet I was surprised to see very few businesses, I think, in our market doing this. And Luke, I don't think at DS you still have, when people book via the website, as you were kind of alluding to there, you still have your staff book them manually most of the time, aside from that new location. Is that right? So are you going to be transitioning over to completely self-service in the future, do you think?
We always have the first session booked manually. So you can't book it automatically because we want to steer it toward one of our sales team people. And we just think that controlling kind of how someone enters that funnel is important. But we are now trying to slowly convert almost all of our clients at all of our locations to their ongoing scheduling to be online. So yes. So when I say online, either via their app or literally just pulling up the website and booking online.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll hand back over to you, Bryce, if you've got any other questions you want to ask Luke.
Yeah, I'm just reviewing some of these great tips and trying to think about permutation questions off of them.
Well, thanks for being so well prepared. I've been impressed with all your questions, and this has been really wonderful. So,
oh no, yeah, and Luke, I really appreciate you doing this as well. I think rather than scroll documents, I'll just say thank you very much, Luke, for this. It's been really helpful.
It's my pleasure, Bryce.
Helpful to know. It's also helpful because it's easy to look at a company like Discover Strength and be like, man, how do you ever get there, right? And it's helpful to know, what that you had to struggle initially as well. You know what I mean? It's easy to kind of look at your heroes and look at them as sort of unattainable, and to know that they're dealt with the similar challenges is real. It's been helpful to hear about Skylar Tanner's journey and Owen's and other folks like that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and you're right. It's and one thing you have to do, and it sounds like a cliche, is you just have to appreciate each stage of that journey. Too many people say, "Well, I'll enjoy my business when we get to this level. I'll enjoy my business when I get to this number." And the reality is, your business will just evolve and change, and there's no specific level or quantity of enjoyment that you have at different levels. So, and I try to be someone that doesn't hearken back to old days, and doesn't also just project into, I'll be happy when we get to this level. But there's times where I've said, well, man, Discover Strength 2006 and 2007, it didn't get any better. I was on the floor all day, every day, and just making it happen with the trainers, and we were killing it. And that's when our workouts were great. And of course, now it's a totally different position, but I still find myself saying, here's where we have to get to next. And so I try to constantly remind myself that each stage, each part of the journey is really, really rewarding. And you don't want to fast forward through any of it. You got to soak it up and enjoy it, because, that's part of this whole entrepreneurial journey, is enjoying each phase of the business. And you have so much, I try not to regale my staff too much with stories about what things were like in 06 or 07, but man, they were different. And, I think about flying. We're in a meeting yesterday, and we're going to fly some staff to a big conference coming up, and we're going to spend $9,000 to bring staff to this conference and go to a fundraiser while we're there, and stay in a great hotel and do all this. And I think, man, when we used to go to conferences, and I've said this to Lawrence before, we used to rent a van and put like 5 people in a van and drive at 3 a.m., 6 hours to, wherever we were going, and sleep in the van. And it's just a different time. But I have an appreciation for each step. So,
yeah.
Wow. Awesome, guys. Well, look, this was so much fun. Thank you, Bryce, for being open and transparent about, your own challenges on the podcast. And again, massive thanks to you, Luke, for taking the time to help. This is going to be so useful for people, I believe. And just want to quickly say, Bryce, you made a mention earlier to the Traction series that Luke and I have been doing inside the Hit Business membership, which is going great. Again, thanks to Luke for doing all that. And that's basically a series we're doing where we're running through the entrepreneur operating system that Gino Wickman teaches in the book Traction, but we're talking about how you do that specifically in a high intensity training business. So if you want access to that series, which is growing every week, we're adding to that every week, then please join the membership, which is over at highintensitybusiness.com/membership, where you'll also get access to content again from Luke and his team on how they generate referrals through great workout experiences. Again, something that Luke alluded to on this, as well as the content Hannah provided on how you guys were able to generate, I think it was like 200 odd leads in an event, some events you had recently, which was very impressive. And I know everyone's obsessed in this industry of marketing tactics. So there's a powerful tactic you can learn more about if you join the membership. So again, highintensitybusiness.com/membership. Thank you guys for joining me again on the podcast. What's the best way, Bryce, for listeners to find out more about you?
Strengths-space.com. Strengths-space.com will be my website. And then I'm on Twitter, eBryce Lee. Check me out there.
Awesome. Yeah, they can check out your tweet storms, which I really appreciate. And your recent critique of Pavel Tsatsouline on Rogan was much needed.
Yeah. Response to Pavel, not critique of Pavel.
Apologies. And Luke, what about you? Everyone knows where you are.
Discoverstrength.com, and someone can always email me also at luke@discoverstrength.com.
Awesome. And are we all attending? Well, obviously Luke's attending Rec. Are you attending Rec as well this year, Bryce? Or?
I sure hope so. I'm like I said, I'm in the reserves, and I have to see if my schedule's going to allow me to do that, because it was painful not to be able to be there last year, and so I'm hoping I can make that happen. Yeah.
We feel the same. It'd be awesome to have you there.
Yeah, I hope you can make it, because it's like, we've known each other for so long, Bryce, and it was just great to meet you in person. And this is obviously the first podcast where I'm sort of announcing that I will definitely be there. Thanks to help from Luke and Hannah, we could be doing sort of a joint campaign to promote Rec on the podcast, and doing some promotion of High Intensity Business there too at the conference. And I'm really, really excited about it as always. And so if people are interested in registering for that, that's resistanceexerciseconference.com, the best high intensity training, business and personal training conference on the planet. And to find the blog post for this episode, guys, and also download free PDF resources, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 256. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field.